social charges, which are borne, depending on your situation, by both the employee and the employer. If you're self-employed, you bear them all on your own. But sometimes in the calculation, for someone who's planning to move to either Spain or Portugal, sometimes it is something they forget to consider, and that may have a big impact. So with that in mind, Augusto, can you talk a bit about social charges in Portugal, please?
Okay, so social charges apply to employment income and also to self-employment income, if it is the case. In case of employment income, the general rates would be 23.75% for the employer and 11% for the employee, which in total 34.75%. And for self-employers, in general terms, the social security contributions would correspond to a tax rate of 21.4%.
So just to be clear, so if you're self-employed, the social charges would be around 20-something%, but not right, but not of your entire income. It'll be up to a certain amount of income. Is there like a?
Well, the social security contributions only apply on 70% of the income, case, for example, of services rendered.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you very much for that. Ricky, Spain?
Yeah, and in Spain, for self-employed people, there's like this monthly fee. It's called the autonomous. And it basically depends on well, normally there was whenever you become an autonomous, the first two years, you only pay a fee of 50 euros monthly. I think this was changed starting 2023. And I think they moved it up to like 80 euros a month. And then once these 2 years are over, then you can, like, depending on what you think you're going to earn that year, you just inform the social security, and then they give you like a range where you can say how much you want to pay. And then at the end of the year, they check between the tax authorities and social security. They check how much you paid, and if you had to pay more or you had to pay less, and then, or either you have to pay or they give you like a credit. And for people that has been employed, for the employer, the withholding normally it's around 36%, and the withholding for the employee it's around 5 or 6%.
Okay, so the burden on, just proportionally, the burden on the company, it seems to be a bit higher. Now, yes. I didn't quite get, for someone who's self-employed, the autonomous, right? So roughly what sort of percentage would that person be looking at? So
normally what people, normally I would say the minimum autonomous that you would be paying if you're earning decent amount of money, let's say, over 35,000. Normally the autonomous fee is around 350 euros a month. This is the social security charge these people have.
So there's people for. So just to be clear, it's a fixed amount, not a percentage. So Portugal is a percentage.
It's a fixed amount that you can increase, because, for example, some people, if they wanna, whenever they want to retire and they wanna like get money from social security, there's people that even pay over 1,000 euros. For the autonomous
into the system, right? But roughly speaking, so that flat amount, at least the minimum requirement, does it translate roughly into a percentage, or not really?
No, it's not. It's not really a percentage. It's an amount that. So basically, however it works, because I'm not an expert on the labor part, but however it works, you just go on the website from Social Security. You normally put the gross salary that you're gonna be earning, and then it gives you like a range, or either you can pay this minimum or you can pay this much, and then people decide. It's something that it was implemented this year, and then that's how it's gonna work for new people that are gonna be self-employed.
Okay, gotcha. So it's brand new. Gotcha. Understood.
So if you're a 6, 7, or 8-figure investor, entrepreneur, or business owner who needs a tailor-made solution from a qualified team of professionals, we can help you achieve the international lifestyle, the freedom, and even the tax savings you're looking for. Visit us at htj.tax and live that international life.